In the canyon, Ralston was once again idly chipping away at the rock when his knife brushed the tip of his thumb.
It ripped part of the skin off of my thumb, kind of like the way an old blister will rip away. And so that made me curious, and I started prodding around, and I stuck the knife down in and at my thumb at that spot, and it slid in like I was sliding it into a pat of warm butter, and it went in. I couldn't feel it, of course, but it went in about a ½ inch, and then this hissing sound of gas, the decomposition gases releasing from inside my arm, my hand, where they'd been building up as my hand was decomposing over those 5 days. And that threw me into a panic. It scared me. It appalled me. It was a gruesome concept that my hand was decaying while still attached to my body. And I started yanking my hand, my arm, and I was giving it everything that I had, and was twisting myself around and trying to slide my arm up and down like this. It came to me, this epiphany, that I could break the bones, because my arm was caught so tightly that I could torque myself. And so I slammed my body against the opposite wall. I grabbed the backside of the boulder and even got my feet up to where I was standing halfway up the wall and grabbing the backside of the rock and humping my body over it until finally that bottom bone snapped. And this pow sound went kind of echoing through the canyon. And I didn't even know if I started feeling excited at that point, but I just knew the next thing that I had to do was that I had to break the other bone. And so I grabbed the bottom side of the rock and pushed and tried to sink myself down until I was pushing up to create the downward leverage on the top bone, until it too made the same noise, pow, and snapped in the same spot, thankfully, right where my wrist was caught. They both broke right along here, just behind the bones of my wrist.
But now you've got to cut off the arm.
Yeah, and I said to myself, here we go, Aaron, you're in it now. And I took my knife. At first I still had the larger blade out, and I held it up against my arm, and I started pushing into it, and I couldn't get the knife to sink in, and so I switched over and I pulled out the smaller blade. And with the smaller blade then I actually started the amputation. The smaller one was still a little more sharp. I just dove into this exercise, this surgical procedure. I put the tourniquet on, and I was bleeding down the wall, and I severed the artery. And
he cut through more muscle and 2 more arteries, then tendon, the most difficult layer. His dull knife was unable to cut through.
So I ended up taking the pliers side of the knife and using that to grab and twist and rip until the tendon gave way. And then I was looking at the nerve, this little strand of spaghetti running through my arm, and I had to take the knife and pry it up. And even when I touched it, it felt like the fire of sticking my arm into just a pot of liquid metal. It burned all the way up my arm, and I took it again and lifted it up. I knew it was going to hurt, and I plucked it up and did in a motion like that, and that fire sensation redoubled and went all the way up to my shoulder. But I knew that was the hard part. And then, boom, and I wasn't even attached anymore, and I fell down like this, and I was free.